All good. I'm going to record this as the meeting zero of
Sounds good.
as a. It's just I think it's funny. Yeah, I'm recording this as meeting zero. Nonetheless, I think there's a few things we wanted to talk about actually. Just like um, I want to get on top of like the concept of a virtual magician's hackathon, or even like virtual hackathons by itself, or even like a permutation of the magician's gathering, but maybe online.
100%.
And potentially like, and that I've kind of got this document here with a few things here.
The
And
HackMD?
yeah,
Yeah.
HackMD.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm on it now.
One sec. And essentially, yeah, we also, yeah, there's quite a few things that have been developing on the Magicians Forum, and like I guess the decentralized development cycle is another one.
Sorry. I was just not at all here.
All
Someone
right.
called my phone. Stop.
There's the other thread about also decentralized development cycles. Yeah, it's actually. Do you want to go through the development cycles first? Kind of get on the
Sure.
same page, yeah. So I think just to get on the same page, I think the whole discussion is really basically around, I mean, I guess several layers. I think it's about actually, it's mainly about collaborating across various around the world in an open source manner, distributed manner, right? And I guess the discussion around the collaboration exists on many levels, from like, I guess logistics wise in terms of various time zones to, I guess intra-team wise in terms of like various models and how to actually effectively move the needle on the project itself. And I guess the common thread here is that I guess it's the challenge is mainly it's everyone's remote. It's all the times in the distributed, and not everyone is full time, and and there's various, I guess, levels of involvement on these projects. And
Totally.
I've been personally trying to solve this with my own kind of, I guess, the various groups I'm trying to organize, such as the Meta Cartel, which is a working group about meta transactions. And essentially within there, I've been trying to essentially calculate a bunch of researchers who are working on the same problems to actually collaborate and see, essentially conduct the research in an open manner. I've also working on collaborations, different collaboration in terms of like, so it's like I found two teams which have matching roadmaps for the next 6 to 8 months. It was apparently a good idea to kind of combine a small portion of their dev team to focus on this roadmap together, as opposed to separately. Aside, and those are two challenges I'm kind of trying to push forward with the Meta Cartel. And I guess I've also kind of really sprung up a separate ETH Magicians kind of ring more recently called ETHProduct. Kind of it's like I guess it's a magician's ring mainly focused around open source product management, Web3 product management. You see the open source and Web3 kind of spices up the usual product management flavor there, and growing open source communities. I added that there in because I feel like while vastly different in nature, they blend a bit more with Web3 open source here. And yeah, I've been trying to see like how to coordinate that, and yeah, just like overall with magicians, I've been figuring out, just thinking along with Boris and like Jamie, like how can we coordinate better, like coordinating magicians better on this front, because it's like, you know, I mean, realistically, you know, you want to cut down travel costs, and it's like it's sometimes not realistic to do that, especially if you're not like paid by consensus to go travel and do that. Not all of us have limited funds, so how can we actually meet up offline in a meaningful manner, in the most impactful manner, and such? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, that's exactly the intention of it, is to kind of bring people together that are dealing with kind of similar problems. to discuss, how we're dealing with it, how we're doing this. Excuse me, Ethereum posted an interesting, made an interesting post today, and it was kind of along the lines of like, I'm reading from it. Where do you see the difference to existing management approaches? Question mark. And what would you emphasize? Question mark. And that kind of made me think a lot, like going back to, what are the principles of the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, and like what does that look like, and like what makes this different. And I think kind of the main difference, as highlighted by the Metacartel work you're doing, is that there is a larger open source community at play here. So it isn't just about collaborating and making sure that your own internal team is kind of their development cycle is kind of coordinated in an effective way, but also to do it on a larger scale as well, with multiple other teams with their own kind of development cycles. And it's really, how do we coordinate, these different things? And I think that, what we see with the core devs call, the ETH 2.0 implementers call, the Plasma implementers call, and like a bunch in like Metacartel stuff. We're seeing that is what makes us unique, is that there are multiple different teams working on similar goals. So we're needing to coordinate, team to team in a really exciting and new way.
I think actually I'll add you to this group. I'm not sure if you're in it actually. I've been adding people into it. It's it's a Telegram group around the open source Web3 product management. And I basically just kind of told people to introduce themselves, what they're doing and what they want to get out of it. And the main we've been collating essentially these intros and discovering what we should do the first community call around, right? And I'll actually just add you in it right now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And essentially one big theme was just like people want to understand or discuss more, if not identify clearly the main big differences between traditional product management, right? Maybe like on an intra-team level, like a one team at a time, one team itself level, to compared to like, I guess, a distributed open source way, I guess, in building a product and product marketing. And I guess not only on the collaboration fronts, but mainly product marketing. I think that's a big challenge, like a big difference there. It's like, especially if you're making developer-facing products, which is a big focus in this community. And I think that potentially might lead into a really nice first community call. That might be a big agenda point, to be honest. So that's interesting that Ethereum kind of really nicely encapsulated that. But yeah, have you dug into the Apache Foundation?
Not too much, no.
So interestingly enough, the Apache Foundation is, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to describe it. It's almost like an open source foundation that provides a open source collaboration framework for projects to essentially become incubated, and then it's like an incubation process. And essentially, the foundation provides guidelines and processes and frameworks on how to actually progress a project through incubation, but also how to progress the project through online collaboration. And I guess the Apache Foundation has frameworks for how to like develop a team on a team, like an intra-team level, but also they kind of coordinate the development of essentially many different teams at once, almost like the whole incubation ecosystem. And essentially the kind of like motto is that community is more than code, and you can really see that the big focus on community development surrounding all of these groups. So that's also very interesting as well, that I've just been digging through.
That's awesome. I made a note. I'm trying to take notes. I made a note of that.
Nice.
I'll look into it for next time. That's really cool. I mean, I really do think that, there is so much that, we use in our day-to-day to do these things that we get from kind of a more traditional set of problems, but it's really kind of the building on top of it, and not pretending like we don't have to have process for doing things. and, organization of some kind amongst ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that there needs to be, someone determining what that organization and process looks like. It's about, creating environments that allow for individuals to be that kind of self-determined actor. And I think that like one of the things that I wrote in the principles, I think got a little bit misunderstood, and that's the one about milestones and team accomplishments. And I think like the big thing to kind of try and do with these things is set things that can be empirically studied, so that we can get better and better and better. And the idea of an accomplishment is never something that should be celebrated beyond the fact that the team together set an accomplishment and that accomplishment was achieved. It's not like it itself as the accomplishment matters at all, but it's the fact that team self-organized around something and made it happen. And we can learn from that. And so I think by making this about kind of learning and less about setting goals and going and getting those goals, because I think like if I've learned anything from Scrum, it's that like, you have to, as much as possible, set things in stone that you can learn from, even in an abstract way.
Yeah, it's almost like even if you run agile processes with a team in the very beginning, it's almost like the agile processes will always have its own unique flavor, influenced by the team and itself, and by the nature of the team and how it performs, despite this kind of best kind of practice process. And I feel like it's almost like within 1 second. Yeah, someone's having a barbecue in in a fucking building. Jesus Christ. Yeah. So I mean, they're breaking up ice and shit. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, someone has a rice cooker in
to the barbecue.
Yeah. Like, what? That makes. But yeah, going back on point, it's almost like like it's very. Yeah, it's almost like you have to. I almost feel like with a lot of projects, you almost have to teach product management to them, or find the right person within the group to be the PM, and not just a project manager, but someone who like it's like these things. I guess in terms of like always trying to learn, like product management really isn't about. It is about kind of getting the team to move the needle and kind of implementing processes to help guide that process and make decrease friction and time to do everything right. And I guess it's like a misconception or like it's just like, the PM kind of implements these processes. Well, they're kind of like the tools to get there, right? And what you're really trying to do is learn how to do things better and get there along the way, right? And it's almost like at least with PMs, right? I feel like it's rather more intuitive, but I feel like we have to be, if we potentially to put up a framework for actually organizing open source kind of teams or projects like inter-team level, that might need to be even more explicit. Interestingly enough, maybe it's just not obvious enough, and
Totally.
and pretend it's almost like an ERC for people. Like it's like, that team's kind of running this. It's I mean, if you think about it, it's like when you say a team's running Scrum, you roughly know how they're operating. Like
Totally. I mean, and I'll be honest with you. The more and more that I've seen and learned from others, like for example, Parity, and their like programming anarchy that they operate under. I mean, it's just so cool, and it works so incredibly well, at getting people to do what they should be doing, and that means that potentially the way in which people come to working together might need to change for that type of an organic work environment to be possible. It might not just happen in traditional, let's go and hire people and, you know what I mean, take in applications or whatever. It needs to be through community and through kind of, through an organic kind of process.
That's very interesting.
I'm really excited by this, to be honest, just like having these conversations. And it's just nice to have, just nice to talk about this.
Yeah. It's almost wait, like could you go further into parity and how they organize themselves? I kind of heard about their model, but I haven't like dug too deep into it. I don't know, like I just think it's
I'm not an expert, but
sure.
I think there's a book or something called like Programming Anarchy. I'll ask a friend, and try to get it, and I'll circulate that on the group. But it's about this. It's the way I understand it, at least. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. Is that, you know, by having kind of not necessarily a pretend flat, but, you know, allowing a person to be the owner and like to be a lead on something while others are allowed to participate if it's something they want to participate in. You know, you're creating an incentive for people to want to push themselves if they want to push themselves, if they want to do something a little bit, you know, safer for the day or whatever. And so I can't really speak for their process. But I mean, the idea of programming anarchy is definitely something that I'm really interested in learning more about and seeing how we can learn from these kind of ways in what we do. So I don't know. I can't speak too much about it, but it's definitely, I'll make a note to look into it more.
Yeah, that would be really, it's almost interesting because you talk about like growing and hiring a team in a more organic way, right? Like almost, and it's almost like within open source, HR is like, I mean, within kind of Web3 open source companies, you've seen teams kind of approach hiring in a very traditional way where they have HR and then just post the jobs and hiring managers like the PM or the lead engineer of the team, and they go through this traditional process. But there's also, what if potentially there's a different approach to hiring in the space where it's more idealistic, right? But maybe less, it's not as quick. Like consensus to grow from like 100 to 1,000 may need like the rigorous kind of just the churn and traditional processes. But what if you can actually, what if hiring, you know, in this space can be approached in a much more organic and different way where it's, you set up an open source structure where, I don't know, like maybe that's more effective in actually preserving culture as well as,
I mean, I'll be totally honest, you know, 99% of my colleagues are people that we've either met through hackathons we've sponsored as a company, through the original local Ethereum developers meetup where I met most of my partner. You know, it's friends. And I think that that's what makes this a bit different, is that at no point did we kind of really say, okay, we need to go out there and we need to like find, and I guess we're not in a position, you know, we are a 21 person company, so it's not like tiny, but it's also not 1,000 people. So we've never had to, you know, go beyond kind of organic growth type situation. So, I mean, from our experience, like, I don't know, it's been awesome just being able to work with people who want to work with you as much as you want to work with them. And it's not really this contrived situation in which we're forced to be friends, you know?
Interesting, yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, we've never spent $1 on marketing, but we've, you know, sponsored hackathons, and that's how we've decided to kind of get involved in the community.
Yeah, I love how your magician's handle is chain safe. So like, I know it's a company because I've seen the Twitter, but I also know it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I use the GitHub account too. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's a lot more fun to be chain safe than it is to, I guess, just be a little old me.
Yeah, it's a bit anonymous. But yeah, I also guess the I mean inter-team stepping outside of the inter-team kind of and going into I guess the inter-team kind of like the Web3 open source ecosystem, right? We're trying to foster
Absolutely.
collaborations and like I guess move things forward. I feel like on that front, in terms of growing the open source community and growing the magicians and so on, right? And fostering meaningful interactions, it's almost like you have to take into consideration, obviously, like between various teams and the nature of the team, like and how they the objectives as well, you know, because it's like dev shops priorities may heavily differ to say a project funded by consensus where they have metrics, and it's almost like or even like a VC backed small startup where it's almost like some teams can't afford to actually participate too heavily due to just to the fact that no one's actually nailed down the efficient way to actually collaborate and communicate. It almost takes a bit of a like when I was mentioning the collaboration between the two teams and like wanting to share dev resources to build a kind of combined team to tackle this roadmap. That's almost like a leap of faith from both teams that this is worth the time and effort and struggle to kind of figure out how to do it, you know, because frankly, it's easy to just stick to your own team and just run and sprint at it, right?
Totally. No, I mean I mean to some extent I disagree with your last statement.
Mm.
Um, to the point that, you know, for example, Gorley is a project
Yeah.
that we started with Afri at ETH Berlin, and there's just no way in hell it would have been
Right.
up and running the way it is right now if it wasn't for like the community to get involved and do stuff that you know, we just didn't have the capacity to do, or really yeah, like for example, like we could have built a block explorer, but POA was awesome, and you know, just added it to Block Scout, and so we could have had that done, but you know, it's this community that really made it happen, and it makes it that much cooler. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I actually really agree. It's almost like a double-edged sword. You know, it's like it can be extremely like it can be almost that big. It can help you achieve really great wins that you wouldn't be able to achieve yourself, hence teamwork. But it all can also like I've seen situations within the community where it's just not everyone had enough time to contribute to it. If not,
Yeah,
no one knew how to really manage the open source process to it. And when there's a bit of chaos and it's not actually handled in the right way, as in there's no need, you know, it can fuzzle out, if not become quite messy and things stagnate. So it is almost like, yeah, like it's definitely like, I think it's a double-edged thing, you know, wanting to
yeah,
participate. Um,
definitely. I mean, like again, like we've never really had a negative experience.
mm,
Like for example, one of the libraries we're working on, um, Darren Langley, you know,
yeah,
like threw down some code,
rocket pool,
and
right?
yeah, from Rocket Pool, and like
Yeah.
we never expected that, you know.
Mm,
So I think it just really depends of what the intention of the collaboration is,
yeah.
and what is the nature of the project. Like sometimes product driven things do have some level of potentially misaligned incentives,
Yeah.
but we don't really work on that kind of a thing. Like the closest thing we have to that is our wallet,
Mm,
and it's open source on GitHub, and you know, anyone could fork it at any moment, and people do fork it. Like someone forked the version and was making like a backdoored version of it. You know what I mean? And we saw it on GitHub, and it's like, fuck, what? Um, it is what it is. Like we're just gonna have to, you know, make a disclaimer
yeah.
or do something that makes it so people know this is the real one. But you know, just little things like that. Like yeah, bad things happen, but um, yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
interesting you bring that up because I was just scrolling through an App Store earlier and I was like, hey, like, why don't we just have like, why doesn't someone like put up a MetaMask wallet app and just have a backdoor? Like, hey,
Just call it a little bit different.
exactly. Put a Fox logo on it. Everyone's like, hey, I use MetaMask on my Chrome. Let's grab that.
Yeah, I
Hey,
mean, these are like real things. Like, you
yeah,
know, for like, yeah, things like, I don't know, like how protected is like an NPM package? Like, how do you know that
right.
it's you're getting from GitHub on an NPM module? Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of these like centralized things, I think we really take for granted how secure they are. Um, and that's why I think just being completely open about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and who you're doing it with, I think is the only recipe to something sustainable. I mean, that's the thing is that traditionally, even in tech, you know, sustainability is not rewarded. Short term, not even profits, but revenue generation is what what people care about. And I think that with the open source world, or at least more and more in the open source world, it's more of a sustainable kind of model that has been played out more and more. Um, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the differences and similarities between what we do and what traditional kind of process looks like.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, I think there might be some research or just like some further baking of the ideas around like, maybe like, is there even like are there like, I assume that I've seen them, like it's just like various like manifestos and frameworks to operate an open source projects, from the beginning to whatever, and potential suggestions on the processes. I think that might be interesting to see one of those adapted to kind of Web3 specifically. Maybe not. It may just be the same thing. Um,
Totally.
just
Totally. No, and I couldn't agree more. You know, because like until I want to pronounce it right, Ethereum like really posted that question. It's like let's focus on differences more than kind of characteristics of what we're doing. So I agree with that and kind of disagree with that, but I totally appreciate this perspective of like let's actually be very clear with what makes what we do differently and what it is that we are actually trying to even um, not solve but start a discourse about.
Mm. Yeah, I think it definitely goes beyond, also beyond just product management and building it, and like the Web3 space in general. It's I guess in product management you also have to understand, take into consideration, I guess, various other factors such as talent, um, like of like growing out your team, and like what I mean that actually factors into marketing itself and communications, which I feel like is a part of the product. I feel like it's just like these are all very interconnected, and they may be even like best practices for, say, communications of a project, that's associated with the product management of it. Like it may be just another, like this is like a new marketing standard. It's like, you'll gain, what is the optimal amount of communications and marketing an open source project should potentially aim to achieve, and like why and how, right? Because it's almost like I mean, yeah, like you see, I've started to realize a lot of teams. Hello, you, he just dropped out. Bounties, bounty that shit.
Hey, so there are two of me now, eh?
Oh, there's two of you now. Nice.
Here, let's see if we can kick me out.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can do that. I removed the other one of you. I tried to at least.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah, so I was saying like I've started to realize a lot of there's almost with marketing, I guess, right? In within the open source community, it's almost like communications. It's almost like your external output to the rest of the world in terms of communicating your product, as well as attract I guess new hires or talents, as well as get feedback about the product from the rest of the world and the market itself, because it's actually fairly difficult to convey certain, I guess, get user feedback or product feedback for certain products, especially if they're very forward thinking, and without analytics. I don't know, because I realized that technical writing and I guess communications on the project itself is actually becoming, I'm starting to see the standard of like a lot of teams just hiring a technical writer to give updates on the project itself, and invest time into, say, communicating the progress of the project, as well as, and just simple things, simple communication and marketing, things like that, that seems to yield a lot of value. And I think that ties into kind of like the I guess, the management of a product itself, because it actually provides a lot of value on the product front, I guess, product feedback front, as well as just, yeah, I think it benefits the whole product itself as well as the whole company. And those are things I'd like to potentially even explore, you know, with the standard of like the standard kind of suggested processes that are put in place. You know, it's like every, for example, like it's suggested that, you know, every 2 weeks you release an update of your progress and what you've been doing, you know, and why you should do this, because of these reasons, you know. This is a very high level and it's hard to but yeah, these are just really thoughts, you know, because I started to realize a lot of teams are just hiring technical writers for this sole purpose, because most teams are just running ahead. You almost need a technical writer to kind of just like, and a comms person to kind of like poke in between the meetings and just like the, I guess, pull requests into the repo to ask what was this about, whatever, and essentially convey that to the rest of the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, in general, I think after through this conversation, I believe that it would definitely be helpful if we started to create some kind of templatable things in general, just processes, kind of all with these principles in mind. But like it would be like an application of these principles in like a way that, you know, we potentially feel would be useful to others. And it could be everything from, you know, what a daily report could look like to a weekly, or, you know, why you would want to do this type of a kind of a structure, or, you know, a couple of different options. And communications would definitely be one of those things. I think that would be a part of this kind of meta template for product management, development cycle, structuring, or whatever it is. I think that there would definitely be value in creating some kind of templatable processes for people to just look at for whatever they want.
It's almost like maybe even like almost like a, you know, the Atlassian team health playbook, right?
I have not looked at it.
Oh, I'll link it. It's actually very interesting. So this is like kind of like Atlassian. They produced a kind of like a team playbook on how to, of various activities you can do with your team to improve the health of it in terms of collaboration, culture, and other things, and kind of diagnose problems amongst the team, and you know, like decisions being made transparently. Do you feel like everyone has a say in the decisions? Does everyone know the high level goal of the product, a team? Realistically, you know, there's kind of like diagnosing various things like that within the team, and they're very good kind of templates and for activities to actually conduct to solve these. They actually use it internally, and they released it.
Sorry, what was the name? I just.
I'm gonna so I'm gonna just post it in team monitors, I guess. Team playbook. Yeah. That might be as well as some open source frameworks, but on the, I guess like if we, I guess this is me really thinking about it on a level where you have very engaged contributors, and it's almost like you have to, there's a spectrum of like highly engaged contributors, and then like maybe people who, maybe projects where it's more casual and actually no one's full time on it, if not even too engaged, not maybe not engaged, but like spending too much time on it. So potentially like in a situation where you have a project where maybe there is a goal to the project and there's collaboration around the project, but it's progressing at a very steady rate, but not being pushed forward too much. I feel like there could be various processes that suit that versus a team which is more higher paced of greater cadence. And I think like that's why I tweeted a while back, what if you have like a 72-hour day, open source day, where it's kind of like everyone in the project kind of announces how they're going to move the project forward, or move the needle forward, even in any meaningful way. And by the end of the 72 hours, you kind of announce what you've done and reflect on how to improve and how to actually continue forward. And the reason why I suggest 72 hours is essentially it kind of replicates, I guess, it's an adjustment to how gradual and how steady the open source kind of space is naturally, by nature, and 72 hours, it's around 3 days, I think. 3 days. And I think that means that you don't need to be highly engaged in terms of keeping up with a high-paced team, like as if you do daily stand-ups, but it'd be enough to kind of be engaged enough on a time basis to provide enough meaningful engagement and value to the project. I don't know, potentially even like frameworks like these for maybe more looser projects. For example, like in the Apache Foundation, they incubate projects, but they have certain stages. So essentially, the first kind of project, it's like the incubation phase. It's like, or the frontier phase. It's like, these are the group of projects that are highly engaged, have like more than like 5 or 6 highly active contributors that are pushing the project forward. And it's it's a project that's maturing in terms of project management and getting more contributors involved. And and then there's kind of the development stage where it's like projects that just started to come together, maybe one person driving it really, and there's a couple contributors, and it's just starting to come together and it's progressing slowly, but it doesn't look like a high paced open source project. Someone like this would be like teams that wouldn't have a grant, maybe teams that are incubated or more developed are prime and ready for a grant, if not already have a grant. And I guess there's also the stage where it's an attic phase, attic group, where it's like an attic of a house, like all the projects that have no maintainers or contributors, you just throw it up there.
That's cool. I'm definitely gonna look into it more.
I'm gonna link Apache.
Do you want to continue on to the next point?
Sure.
Not that I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah, we just
the opposite. I would love to talk about this more, and I would, if possible, for our next discussion, if we could have for our next call, if we could break these two things up into separate calls.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll have more people involved. In the next development cycle call, and I think that having a whole hour to talk about what we've talked about would definitely be would be what's necessary.
Absolutely.
But I definitely want to talk some more about the stuff you've been posting about just different event structures. Jamie and Greg have posted their presentation about the Ethereum magicians on HTML, so anyone could really look at it anytime. So yeah, I think that that's a really cool kind of first potential meetup zero that people could start out with. Kind of you voiced more of wanting to have something for non-Ethereum, like non-Ethereum people even.
Yeah,
And that's something that, yeah, something we should talk about.
definitely. Yeah, like I guess the next point is the Virtual Magicians Hackathon. I honestly don't know. It's a, I mean, I was kind of attracted to this idea, right? Mainly because it's kind of the idea of scaling out the magicians or even just the open source kind of community, right? Into the local community. I think that's what it's mainly key for. And do you think it's a realistic thing? You know, why are you interested in a Virtual Magicians Hackathon?
For sure. I mean, good question. Because I mean, I've seen it done with like negative intentions. I've seen it done with positive intentions, and I just think that why couldn't we do this?
Yeah.
About almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, there was like a Dubai government virtual hackathon, and I know that people locally were competing in it. And the main reason was because they were pretty big bounties. And I believe that, you know, instead of focusing on trying to get 1,000 people in one place at one time, and like I've been to every single ETH global hackathon so far, other than ETH India. So I mean, this isn't for me. You know what I mean? This isn't people who are necessarily Ethereum already people, and it's not necessarily for people who have a local community where they can learn this stuff. This is for people who would go to an online seminar and would take half an hour to do like a 1.5 hour workshop, and then another 1 hour maybe live coding session and a 30-minute Q&A. People would like that. People would like an all-day workshop session that would be, you know, through a virtual hackathon like this. I mean, I would personally.
Definitely, yeah.
And so I don't see why we couldn't coordinate something with all the incredible people that are in this community, why it wouldn't be possible to put together like a day of workshops for a month straight, potentially even. And one of the weekend days, like 4 hours of talks or 5 hours of talks. And it's, you know, there's plenty of content out there. There's people doing incredible stuff. People wanting to bring this to local people. And I think that expecting all of these smaller communities to be able to bring out, like Peter brought it up during the Ring talk itself at the Council of Prague. It was like, you know, how do we get people to actually go to these things? And it's, you know, how can we get people potentially, I think, to watch these things? I don't think they need to go. So I think with the right incentives and the right workshops that happen virtually, there's no reason why this couldn't be the largest Ethereum hackathon ever.
Yeah, like I thought of it like in terms of tactically, right? I thought of it like, yeah, I think I can definitely organize this series of or like a hackathon on the ground, and if everyone else is coordinating alongside it in terms of time, I think that would be possible. I've been just thinking about how involved and would the various time zones be with each other. Potentially, you have at the minimum, like when you do the presentations for the hackathon, at the minimum you partner up with like another time zone or another city, you know, to kind of make it more engaging. But then you just need a partner city to do that, and then you just post up the videos of the various cities partnering up to present. Maybe this is going really granular but that's kind of the real reason. I mean, otherwise you just do more hackathons regardless of time. You know, the real iron thread that's combined, like makes it really cool, is just that everything's happening in sync. But I think it's totally possible. It's just like I'd even be down to like experiment this upcoming I mean, this weekend we actually in Sydney we have a crypto kind of blockathon, like a hackathon thing, right? And after that, I expect there to be more noise and more ethos around building, since, you know, a hackathon kind of brings up some noise. I think it'd be very interesting to kind of continue. Again, we've had like previous Sunday afternoon kind of hack togethers, code togethers. So it'd be very interesting to even see if we can like have maybe like a 1 month thing, or like even like a 2 or 3 week thing where it's just like you have more activities leading up to we can hack together, and we just share the hack from each cities. And that even if it's a small one of 2 cities, Toronto and Sydney, I'm happy. Like I think it's just like I want to like see how to even execute it, the little like nuances and how to do it better, what needs to actually be done, what to take care of it. I just want to see and do it, see what problems we face.
Totally. I mean, I know people here would be extremely interested.
Yeah, definitely.
It would. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why a Dubai government can have a successful distributed hackathon, and a group of people who are building towards a decentralized distributed world can also organize this. I mean, I have I have faith in us being able to do what we do best, which is just talking to people, identifying what it is they need, and working together to fill those needs. And so right now, it seems like there's a lack of education, there's a lack of content, there's a lack of engagement with local communities. And so, like, how do we, bring people from all of these different meetups all over the world and give them something that they can host locally that allows for more people to come out that have a developer background.
Absolutely.
I've been able to make that leap because there might have been a hackathon or there might have been something, but because we're offering workshops from all over the world at all times of the day, it's a completely different incentive, as well as providing financial incentives that are on a global scale. So working with potentially companies from all over the world to work together to really try and get their software in as many hands as possible.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point on like coordinating this locally, because one thing, it's like with the status hackathon, like I was in Barcelona and they was essentially trying to frantically promote the week before DevCon. And it's like, okay, how do we actually get the word out amongst about the various events happening before DevCon to the rest of the world? And essentially, sure, you can post it around the core crypto community and Twitter, you see it around, right? But then it's like, this is an event of 3,000 people, of a lot more local people who aren't online so much. So maybe one thing is just that I have a chat of like random people around the world who host meetups or are part of the organizing force. So it's kind of like you just have like this backbone, a channel of like various cities. You can kind of like post something like, hey, can we announce this thing to everyone else? And it's like, at your next meetup, can you please announce this?
100%.
And like that might be very interesting, and because it makes sense. It's like there's no communication channel city to city wise. And locally, so that this might be an interesting thing as well. Yeah, just like
totally. The only place I've really seen successful kind of multi-party kind of organization was Blockchain Education Network. So I used to be on their Slack like a year and a bit ago, 2 years ago. I mean, there were people joining from all over the world saying, "Hello, I'm working on this here. Hello, I'm working on this here." And it was just people meeting other people and collaborating on things, and it was just great. It was just a group of people. It wasn't a Telegram group. It wasn't anything even that easy and accessible. It was like a Slack page. You know what I mean? But I do believe that we can start making these strides to involve local communities in this. I don't think that it's fair to think that we can just do this overnight, but it's also unfair to think that without trying, this could somehow happen. Like somehow we're going to fall into Ethereum being worked on in local communities. It's just going to happen one day, and I don't think that that's being very honest. And I don't think us to go places and be like to go and proselytize this is also the solution.
Absolutely.
For example, ETH Buenos Aires, in my mind, had the coolest projects. Built. There was like a WikiLeaks on the blockchain.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of things that, we would have never thought of in North America and in Europe as well. It's like doing things for real problems that people have. And without giving access to a lot of just resources that we take for granted, I don't know how we expect people without a local community to be able to participate.
Absolutely. I came from I was spawned, do you know Bucky Poobah?
I mean, I only the name from Twitter.
Right. I mean, like, I came out of his local workshop and I was spawned out of into the Ethereum space. And like, a lot of people were from Sydney actually, around Bitford and Bucky's workshops. These were like one of the first kind of real Ethereum workshops that began the whole community. And almost everyone from Sydney has gone to at least one of them.
That's awesome.
And I think these workshops are actually what moved the needle a lot. It's just that right now, they're distributed and they're not coordinated together. And I think there's value in that, and I think it's just like, it's just been a gradual kind of coalescence of like the understanding that this is more social. There's a lot of social coordination both, and it is a social movement now rather than it, as well as the technological one. Right. And yeah, like, there's also another chat, Telegram chats. Everyone loves some more Telegram chats of a bunch of, a group of people who are focused on developer education. I'm not sure if you're in it.
No, I love it.
I'll add you into it.
I'm going to be honest. I have to run in a second.
Yeah, sure, please. Yeah.
But I just want to say, like, same. Like, my partners and I, we met at the local Toronto Ethereum Developers Meetup.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have never met. And I feel an obligation to give back to the spaces and help empower spaces that were the type of spaces that are the reason I'm here today talking to you.
Yeah.
And without that, I would have never been here.
Absolutely.
And I think that privilege of community is something that we cannot take for granted. And the only way to create that space is by putting this on the internet.
Cool.
Awesome.
So that kind of caps off our community core number 0.
Thank you again for making this happen.
No worries.
And yeah, let's talk on the internet and let's have this call.
Awesome.
Soon.
Let's keep progressing. I'll kind of bake some ideas and I'll probably have more thoughts overnight. Yeah.
Peace, Peter.
Peace.
Talk to you soon.